Welcome, everyone, to the August Town Commission meeting of Ocean Ridge. Tracy, would you call the roll, please?
Well, Commissioner Ascom.
Present.
Vice Mayor Bonfiglio.
Here.
Commissioner Cos.
Here.
Commissioner Magruder.
Here.
And Mayor Pugh.
Here. Okay, can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. All right, any additions, deletions, modifications to the agenda?
Yes, I would like to add a commissioner comment to the agenda, my comment.
Okay. We'll put that right under Town Commissioner comments.
Town commissioner comments, and you can put it at the end if you'd like, or I'll do it right
We'll
then.
do it right up front.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Bonfiglio. Is there any other additions or modifications? If not, would someone like to approve the agenda, please?
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion and second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, public comment on anything on the, you want to, or if you're commenting on anything that's in the meeting, you can wait until that time, either or. Ted?
Ted Rotota, 4 Hudson Avenue. I feel like I'm becoming a thorn in your guys' side, but I can't be at all the meetings, and I understand that the license plate recognition thing was thrown out of the budget, and that's what I'm here to talk about. But I'm going to make you guys go through it again, because I sincerely believe some of the things I've written down in my notes here. I've been in this town for a long time, since 1983, okay? And back then, you never had to worry about stuff going on. And that complacency maybe has led to some of the issues that we're dealing with. But the times have changed. And I think that our little town has become a target town like East Del Rey was a number of years ago. And it's no criticism of the police and the patrolling you guys do. You guys just can't be everywhere all the time. And certainly residents are at fault when they leave a car running with keys in it, blah, blah, blah. But the criminals today, they don't care if they have their pictures taken. They're prepared for that, okay? And I think we need any kind of additional defense that we can have. And this is certainly technology. I was made aware of it this weekend on the beach. Georgia Tech University has just implemented a system. And as soon as a car comes on, and I understand they can control the software, as soon as a car comes onto their property, if it's had a felony registered to the plates, I'm not sure of the details, that shows up, okay? When it enters the town, not even if something's been done. In that case, when it enters the campus. You know, it might be an additional deterrent, the license plate recognition, and I think that's what we need now. What are we waiting for? You know, what is it, what's the problem? Why are we not getting this done? I was sitting at home the other night, Friday night, and watching TV, and all of a sudden, spotlight comes along, lighting up my inside my house. And I've never been like this before. I jumped and I called the police department because I had 2 girls out in a hot tub. My daughter and her friend were out in a hot tub. Have to specify that.
I prefer 2 girls in the hot tub.
And she's young, In any event, anybody can walk into my backyard, and I jumped up and I called the PD, and I spoke to the gal, and I said, you know, is there anything going on Hudson Avenue that I need to know about? And she said, no. Why? And I said, because the spot beam just came down the street. And she goes, no, they're just patrolling. I said, great, that's good to hear. The point is, my heightened awareness is maybe good, but maybe paranoid at the same time. I just really feel that this town, you know, we're like Golden Beach, we're like Highland Beach. We may not be the same as Gulfstream or Manalapan, but we're not far behind them. And if we have opportunists like these guys that stole the car were, driving around town, just looking for the right time, 50 seconds, you know it, 50 seconds, they got the car and we're gone, okay? We need some help. I'm very disappointed to hear that this was thrown out of the budget. And I would like to meet with Christine with you too when I can to hear your side, because I know it would be good, but you're going to get some feedback for me, obviously.
Thank you, Ted. Anyone else, public comment? Terry? Oh, sorry. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Terry Brown, 23 Harbor Drive South. Were we going to be able to ask, I know we're not supposed to ask the attorney or staff people when they do their report, but isn't the town attorney going to do a report on the easements and the right-of-ways? And I saw that in the package. Is there
Yeah.
going to be some verbal discussion, and are the residents able to ask questions at that point?
Absolutely.
All right. I wanted to bring up one other quick thing, not to depress everybody, but I just recently read a study from the University of Florida scientists, which was recently published in the Geophysical Research Letters about sea level rise. The reason why I'm bringing this up, because I see no discussion, any budget issue or any comments regarding at least looking at this issue, particularly regarding the low-lying areas like Engle, Anna, Harbor Drive North and South at the western end. This study shows that the sea level rose in the southeastern United States between 2011 and 2015, 4 years, by more than 6 times the global average sea level rise that is already happening due to human-induced global warming. So they're saying it's going to accelerate, that there's hot spots, and I'm not suggesting that we compare ourselves to the city of Miami, which that particular mayor has asked for $160 million in their budget for this year to do infrastructure improvements, elevating roadways, drainage, and that sort of thing. But I do think it would be beneficial, not to spook all the people in real estate who want to sell and market Ocean Ridge, but we need to look at what would happen 3 or 4 years down the road if that just comes up even a foot. On Harbor Drive would be underwater.
Prices will go up.
I beg your pardon?
More waterfront.
Yeah. Cute, that's cute.
Well, we did, Commissioner Magruder actually brought it up at the budget meeting about putting it in the budget.
My good friend Don Magruder.
And let the record show that I have not talked to Mr. Brown about that issue prior
Is
to
there some
bringing it up.
collusion going on here?
I mean, it's a concern to me. I'm 72 and a half. If I make it to 73, I'm very happy. I don't know how much longer my life will be, but the town, we expect to go on longer. And you're gonna have issue where marketing people moving in here, as Mark Marsh, I don't know if he's here, keeps saying that Ocean Ridge is under the target for real estate and development. And we all know that, we see it on our streets. So, I mean, I think it's something that we need to look at. How we do it, or how modestly we do it, I think it's something worth considering.
Thank you.
Terry, just for your information, I've been talking to some of the legislators in Palm Beach County, state legislators, and number one, the administration refuses to allow their employees to even use the words climate change and ocean rise and
Well, we're not that
none of those
backward, are
things.
we?
And number two, the Republicans who control the budget process refuse to budget any money to give us for infrastructure, and it's just way too expensive for us because we'll have the short-term, midterm solution is,
It's gotta be a
drainage.
local
Yeah.
solution, like the city of Miami.
We don't have,
Miami
but we
Beach.
just don't have the money. And I've
Yeah.
been talking to them about trying to get money, and you just,
Well, I'm not
they
even
won't
talking about
appropriate
doing
it.
the improvements, I'm just talking about doing a study of where it would likely happen and how often it would happen and when will it happen. I mean, that can't be that much expense.
We can always look into that and see,
Yeah.
get RFPs for that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Gil Fornator, 7 Inlet K Drive. I was here a few months back concerning the number 6 construction going on and demolition and what have you. And I asked at the time, and I had asked Mr. Titcomb, if there are any waivers on the plans, any waivers of code. And I've been advised that everything is going to be new on that property, so I presume that the plans must be finished by now, so I'm asking again, how many waivers, or are there any waivers at all on the plans of that property? And the other thing I think we should address at some point in time is the construction of seawalls that I have not ever heard of any code or plan or what have you. It's going back to the ancient seawalls that were originally here. They were one contiguous cap along the individual properties that would go right through all of the properties. And then when they are replaced, they are cut up and brought up into the property lines. And how those two join is something that I think should be addressed at some point in time, because if there's not proper joining of those seawalls, you're going to have drainage right into the canals, and we're going to have a sinking problem in these properties. So that's all I had to say about that. I think that sometime it's going to have to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine DeHaas at 29 Sable Island Drive. Hopefully I haven't overworn my welcome already today. I am here with my garden club hat on. I don't know if you have had the opportunity to see the booklet that the town happened to sponsor. It is absolutely wonderful. I'll pass it out once again. If you have it, go ahead, give it to your neighbor, give it to somebody else. The reason that I'm bringing it up is it's the garden club was contacted about some beautification projects that people have been talking about throughout town, and we say yay. We love beautification, particularly you've got a very robust fund for it. I think it's still sitting at about $118,000. We request, though, that before any individual expenditures are being done, whether it's on Harbor Ridge Estates or Sable Island or anywhere else, that the town go through an entire town-wide assessment and really pick out what are the most important needs, and then what doesn't need to be done but would be good, and then what is just basically aesthetic, and really take a look at it at a very macro level rather than doing a project here and a project here and a project there. I think that that's poor planning. The second part of that is we would strongly suggest that any town plantings be done with native-only plants and start to remove the exotics. They're easier to keep up with. They're easier to maintain. They don't require as much water. They're much more hardy. And that was kind of the whole reason that we did this booklet, was to educate our residents and our staff, and obviously then our mayor and our commissioners, as to what is native, what isn't native, and why native planting is so important. So I would like to go one step further, and I don't know if this would go through planning and zoning or where it would come from, but I would like to see the opportunity for a discussion to actually pass an ordinance that any time the town redoes part of their owned properties, whether it is on a public right-of-way or not, that they maintain it through only native plantings and not, and start to migrate away from these exotics that that don't do so well here. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Commissioners, Mayor,
Hey,
Nancy Hogan, 37 Hibiscus Way. Didn't know I was going to speak tonight, but I was just going through my notes and found all kinds of things that I rip out of the paper every day. And I do want to mention right away the Coastal Star. It's where I grew up in upstate New York, a town of 9,000, and our local paper was like this. It was about our neighbors. It was about our everyday life that you don't get when you watch Fox or CNN, and it's a wonderful, wonderful periodical that we have. So I want to mention to you the groins. I've been reading about the groins, and I lived in Westport, Connecticut, which is on Long Island Sound, been on borders, living on the borders for a long time, and what happens with beach and beach erosion, and the best scientists, who knows? It's like global warming. Who knows? Although a lot of people believe they know. So I haven't heard anything from our town of what you're doing in this discussion of the groins. and the shift of the sand coming down into Manalapan and Ocean Ridge. So if you can let us know as citizenry what you're doing, it would be very helpful, and I do hope you're involved. Just like Federal Highway is really, really heating up, and there's building after building after building. Please, please, please be involved, pay attention, and be there. And Commissioner Coase, even though you think it's none of our business, it is our business. We are a barrier island, and there's very little access off and on. It's important we pay attention. And Commissioner Bonfiglio, you know, let's relax a little. You're talking about Republicans who are creating no money for anybody. Let's get factual. Let's hear who you're talking about in more detail than just coming up in the day or your days and saying it's Republicans who won't give a cent.
Well, they control the legislature.
So what?
Thank you, Nancy. Any other public comment? Okay, moving on to the approval of the consent agenda. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, announcements and proclamations. The fiscal year 18 budget meeting schedule is as follows. The budget workshop, August 22nd, is going to be at 4 o'clock. It says as needed, but we're going to be doing it. The first public hearing and adoption of tentative budget is going to be September 11th at 6 p.m. And then the final public hearing and adoption of our final budget will be September 21st at 6 p.m. All right, now we're on to Town Commissioner comments. Vice Mayor Bonfiglio.
Thank you. We all know the events that happened last week leading to the death, and I believe the murder of 32-year-old paralegal Heather Heyer, along with 19 other injured in Charlottesville, Virginia. She was killed innocently and peacefully protesting against Nazis, white supremacists, racists, bigots, the KKK, hate, and violence. The reason for her, in my view, justified protest is that this group of Nazis, haters, and bigots invaded Charlottesville to glorify and protect symbols of and memorials to treason and traitors in defense of slavery. I'm not sure where I saw or read that phrase, but I wish I had crafted it. If you're not horrified and outraged over the morally abhorrent and despicable acts of these hate groups, then you're not paying attention. We need to ensure that the world knows this country is better than that portrayed by these despicable and cowardly acts of these Nazis, white supremacists, racists, bigots, the Klan, and hate and violence mongers. Heather Heyer wanted to send a clear message to the Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan sympathizers and the hate groups who plan to stage one of the largest far-right rallies in recent U.S. history, that people abhor their views in the city where she was born and the country in which she lives. She sacrificed her life in the fight for social and racial justice. We need to make sure that Heather Heyer and the other people injured will not be forgotten and to honor their memory and what they stood for. To that end, I think we must condemn 45's attempt to blame many sides in his initial statement on this act of unspeakable hate. There aren't many sides to Nazism. There aren't many sides to white supremacists, to racists, to bigots, to the Klan, or to hate and violence. There's only one side, and that's the wrong side. Apparently, after this happened, that was 45's side, the wrong side. He only changed his tune after the vast majority of the U.S. from all parties condemned his statement. That was too little and too late. I would ask that the consensus of the commission direct our town manager to write 3 letters on behalf of the residents of Ocean Ridge. The first to go to the family of Ms. Heyer, her mother, Susan Breaux, her father, Mark Heyer, and I believe he lives in Sharp, Florida, offering our prayers, condolences, and support. A second letter to Mayor Siner for his attempts to remove the symbols of racism from the town. And the third, I would ask that he send to number 45 for failing to immediately speak out in condemning the Nazis, the white supremacists, the racists, the bigots, the KKK, the hate and the violence mongers who precipitated the incident leading to her death. So that's what I would like to do. I would ask the commission to give consensus to our town manager to send those 3 letters.
What was the last letter?
The last letter was to number 45. I refuse to say his name because he doesn't deserve to be called president, for failing to immediately speak out and condemn the Nazis, the white supremacists, and the racists and the bigots who precipitated the incident leading to her death.
Well, I have no problem with the 1 and 2. I'm not going to degrade the President of the United States. I won't do that.
Well,
So,
I do not have a problem with number 1, that's it. And I also think that, I don't want to get you angry at me, Jim.
I'm not angry at anybody.
Okay. An Ocean Ridge Town Commission meeting to be using this as a platform, a political platform for interest outside Ocean Ridge, I think is improper.
Well, I think we need to stand up against the Nazis and the white supremacists who now think they have free reign for violence, to hurt people who are peaceful protesters in the country. I think we need to make a statement.
I think you have. You have made a statement.
So, at least do we have a consensus for 2 letters to go out under our letterhead? No?
Thank you for your comment, Jim.
So we're not going to direct the town to condemn those acts and give our support to the mother?
I think that the town does, the commission does condemn the acts. But you're asking the town, the local town, to be involved in the federal politics and what happens. I understand, we all have the feelings you have, Jim, for some of those things. But I mean, I think that you're involving something that's, maybe the letter to the woman that died, I think I have no problem with. The other 2, I don't think that's really that's not our purview.
Okay. Steve, do you have any problem sending a letter at least to the lady's parents who died?
None.
Don? No. Gail?
No, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Well, at least let's get 1 letter on our letterhead expressing our sympathy and support, both to Susan Bro, who is the mother, and Mark Heyer, who is the father. Prayers, condolences, and support.
Yeah, and we should all review that letter before it goes out.
So for clarification, we'll draft a letter and circulate it among you for approval to have the mayor sign it and send it, or under my signature, or how would you like that done?
Well, it's a letter from the commissioners as well. Well, we will all be signing it.
Okay.
I'll sign it.
Okay?
We'll draft that up and circulate it to you,
Okay.
if that's your consensus.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the, well, no, it's a commissioner comment, so can we move on from that, please? Let's go to reports. Jamie?
Okay, I'll be brief, Mayor. Thank you. The first item I have, the attorney will be talking about an RFQ during his report briefly, but in conjunction with floating an RFQ to do some drainage and environmental studies, engineering drainage study, under the CCNA rules, we will have to seat a selection committee to vet through the responses to an RFQ, and I just want to put it out there to you so that you could be thinking of how we would comprise that committee, whether you would want staff or local citizens or a commissioner and some citizens or what have you to sit for a meeting or 2 or 3 to go through the vetting and selection recommendations for an engineering firm that might produce our engineering drainage study under the RFQ. You don't have to, I don't need an answer right now. I just need to put on your radar screen that if we go for the RFQ, we're going to need a selection committee for procedural reasons.
Okay.
And Mr. Schutt can expand on that later when he's talking about the study itself, if there's more specific detail. We've already talked about the budget stuff. I'll skip over that. I will be out of town Thursday and Friday attending the state Florida League of Cities Conference, representing you on municipal administration and the Federal Action Strike Team, and as a voting delegate at the Florida League. And then I put a note in here because I got so many calls from residents and concerned citizens when some recent media articles surfaced about some of the hot topics like dogs on the beach and things, and I just wanted to reassure everybody that nothing has formally been proposed to us, and Town of Ocean Ridge codes and ordinances prevail. So nothing's happening until something specific is recommended and adopted by this board and then allowed in code. So there's some of the ideas that are being proposed and written about, while they cause a lot of concern, are not imminent until specific actions are taken. So just a note to hopefully have everybody rest a little easier as these concepts get proposed and talked through. And I'll answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Jamie?
None.
No.
Not to me.
Oh, thank you, Jamie. Okay, Brian?
Okay, the first part of my report deals with the Ocean Beach crossovers. Now, you'd given direction for me to have title work performed on the 8 crossovers. The 5 northern crossovers, Edith, Anna, Corinne, and Thompson, and Porter Street, were all dedicated for public access by plat. There's really no other separate instrument that talks about their ownership or anything like that, or any other dedication to the town. It is just dedicated by plat for public access. The crossover at Beachway Drive is the exact same thing, except it's dedicated for public access by a separate plat. It's not the same plat. The first 5 are on the same plat. Beachway is on another plat. And once again, there are no other instruments, whether it's deeds or whatever, that give any other ownership interest to the town regarding that crossover. Now, the 2 deeds to the south, or the 2 crossovers to the south, the one at Diamond Beach and then the other one that is just south of there, the Diamond Beach crossover, it was deeded to the town by a warranty deed from the Diamond Beach Corporation. However, that deed contains a reverter clause that provides that if we ever terminate our use of the crossover, which we would basically have to, notice or send some notice out or to the Diamond Beach Corporation, or if there are any subsidiaries to that, to basically say, we don't want this anymore, then the reverter clause kicks in, and that crossover would revert back to the Diamond Beach Corporation or its successors or assigns. The same thing as far as the very southern public crossover was dedicated to us or given to us by Palm Beach County. It's my understanding that back in '08, I think the county had it and maybe they didn't want to maintain it or whatever, so they deeded it to the town. Likewise, it also talks about unrestricted beach access, but it also contains a reverter clause, so if we were to ever curtail the public access, then that crossover would revert back to Palm Beach County. And so that's basically the ownership interest in all of those 8 crossovers. Now, while the top 6 were dedicated to us by plat, Attorney's Title Insurance Fund could not give us a title policy, not that we would want one on those anyway, because I guess way back when it was dedicated to us by plat, the town commission did not formally accept the dedication of the crossovers, even though we approved the plat. And that is just creating I think the fund looks at it as just a title issue, and that's about all it is. I don't think it's really an ownership issue or anything else. It's just a title issue where they wouldn't issue title insurance for that. But once again, no one else has any greater rights than we do to those crossovers.
Well, that, when you say title issue, that's a title insurance issue as opposed to fee simple ownership.
Exactly. I mean, we don't have fee simple ownership because we have the dedication. But no one else has, any greater rights than we do to use those crossovers as, for public ingress and egress.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah. The crossover south of Tropical. What is Tropical? I know you probably weren't asked that, but
Well, there
did you
is.
stumble into that?
Yeah, no, there is just one. There's Diamond Beach crossover, and then there's one public crossover south of that, and I don't know what it's called. I think on the map it was referred to as like the town public crossover or something
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
like a little garden area.
Okay, and that's the one.
Chief?
Yeah,
So the crossover that you referred to at the end of Tropical is a
Correct.
private deeded beach access to certain residents on Tropical. It is not a town crossover. It looks like one. It is the one south that is maintained by the garden club that is the town's.
thank you.
Public comment?
Yes. I don't want to correct the chief because he's probably right, but Tropical is an easement by prescriptive nature because of use, as are all the other beach crossovers that the town attorney talked about, even though they're not, you don't have an ownership document. They've been used for so long, they become public access on top of everything else he said by prescriptive use. Okay, so they're there forever. The comment I have is about Beachway. That is there forever. Is that right? It's on the plat. The Woolbright Bridge and Woolbright Road butted up to A1A subsequent to that plat. Am I right? Or do you remember?
No,
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I'm just
Okay.
commenting on, it was
Right.
dedicated on the plat
Well,
for public access.
I'm trying to lead up to a point that we're talking about, I assume for the winter season, because we talk about the influx of visitors. The point I want to make clearly to everyone is that the beach access point at Beachway is permanent and will be there forever. You can't close it, you can't restrict its use. When he says that no one else has any other interest more than we do, that doesn't include the public, who have, and on the plat, it goes all the way to the ocean, does it not? It goes all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, that little 10-foot, what you call road.
Well, I think it goes to the sovereign lands of the state.
Right.
And, but I mean, once again,
Of course,
it's-
that's changes from over the years. My point being that we have proposed to spend a lot of money for additional police officers to sit at that particular location. It's mentioned in the chief's memo. And I personally don't have any problem with hiring a lot more police officers if that's what it takes to keep the town safe. What I am concerned about is having police vehicles parked near that access point without anything going on, no crimes, no fights, no knives, no demonstrations, no sex on the beach that happened 25 years ago. Someone brought that up once. And their cars are sitting idling, burning gasoline, putting fumes into the air, and it doesn't make sense. We need officers, we can patrol them everywhere around the town and have people come there. But to have them parked on the weekends during the winter for intimidation purposes, or, I mean, you've solved the parking problem by putting up the barrier there. The police officers have been parking on Old Ocean at the stop sign. I mean, I've seen a couple of them there when I go out on my street legal golf cart. So I'm just concerned about why we would be spending that money. We're not going to be able to control people. All those people on Boynton Beach are going to come over and use that access point. There's no way you can stop pedestrians from using it. You can control the cars and the parking, but you don't need police officers to do that sitting there hour after hour. I mean, am I making a point? That's a lot of money, $156,000. And as far as the crime on the beach, we could use more patrols on the beach. And someone mentioned dogs on the beach. There are dogs on the beach every evening, many of them, around 7 or 8 o'clock, I guess, during the shift change with the police officers. No one says anything to them, am I right? They're there all the time. So we're not going to allow dogs, more dogs, is what someone pointed out, right? But their dogs are still there. So I don't know what we're going to do about that. I don't know what a patrol, if we would patrol it during the daytime with an ATV, it's not going to solve the problem of dogs on the beach in the evening. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Brian, basically now we know it's a definitive issue on who owns what.
Or who has the rights to those crossovers, yes.
So that should be, so we should actually put that in a frame and put it somewhere in the back. And bring it out here a couple years from now and when somebody asks about it.
I'll make sure the town clerk has all the title work on that.
Great. Anything else?
Not on that one, no, okay. On the next one, the RFQ, now that is in your backup. You had also given me direction to draft an RFQ for engineering work for the Inlet K island there, and, or the Inlet K drainage study, and that is attached. I don't know if you all have had a chance to take a look at it, if you have any comments on it, or otherwise, we plan on putting this out on the street very soon, and it'll probably be out for about 30 days, and when it gets back, that's when Mr. Titcomb is talking about the selection committee that will need to evaluate that, make recommendations, and bring that forward to you.
Okay.
I have a question for you. Can our town engineer qualify, or is she exempt because she's a town engineer?
You mean as far as try to apply for this?
Yes.
Could she? I guess she could. However, I think my conversation with her would be, look, since you helped write the scope of work, I think it would be a conflict,
Probably not.
and you know. So I'm not, let me put it this way, I'm not expecting to get a response from her firm.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
And I also have one other thing too, if there's no other questions on that one.
Shoot.
Okay. The concept plan review for site plan I guess, review possible site plan procedures to be conducted by the Planning and Zoning Board, the Planning and Zoning Commission. We had a meeting yesterday morning, and at that meeting, I think the town clerk had also pointed out where, you know, there was certain direction. I was going under the guise of, look, I just pulled in the concept plan review that was in the ordinance that was not approved at your last meeting. And basically that provided that it is voluntary, that if anybody wants to do it, they can, but it is voluntary in nature, and that if they do bring it forward in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission, then the Planning and Zoning Commission could look at it, make recommendations, but those recommendations are non-binding. I believe in the minutes, though, what the discussion was between the commission and the Planning and Zoning Commission may have dealt a little bit more with making it more mandatory for single-family homes and anybody over 50% who were doing work, or where I guess the cost of the construction was over 50%, where it would be mandatory for them to come in front of the Planning and Zoning Board, but the Planning and Zoning Board's recommendation was not binding. It would just be a recommendation that would go to the zoning official for his review. So I guess I'm trying to seek some direction on that before I go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission, because I also notice in the minutes that you all had kind of given direction for the Planning and Zoning Commission to take a look at this as well. And I don't want to say the direction was not that clear from that meeting, but if you have any clarity on which way you would kind of like for me to proceed, that might help, you know, if I need to change the way that I'm drafting that ordinance when we go back in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission again.
Well, I believe it was part of the permitting process, it was mandatory, part of the permitting process, so it goes through the process of,
If it's new construction and
Or
if
it's
it's
over
50%, then it would be mandatory that they come in front of the P and Z Commission for them to review it, and they can make a recommendation, but then that recommendation would go to the zoning official, I guess that's, at that point in time, it is only a recommendation. It's not a mandatory, thing that the zoning official would have to take into account. Is that what I'm kind of hearing?
In layman's term, I believe what we're trying to achieve is review, but not approval.
that's correct.
Right.
And exactly what
Okay.
you just said, that's
Oh,
what, that
Okay,
is-
so make it mandatory for the review, but as far as the approval goes, there is no approval, it's just a recommendation, and the zoning official can take a look at that and determine if there are certain items there that, you know, may or may not conflict with the code, because in some cases, the area is a little gray as far as what he might be looking at, and the Planning and Zoning Commission may give further direction on that.
that's
So
exactly.
is that, kind of the direction? Okay.
Polly?
Polly Joe at 35 Hersey Drive. We already have a site plan review requirement in the code. I believe this architectural review ordinance was going to expand that.
I mean, there is no site plan requirement for like single-family homes. Those just go to the zoning
Okay.
official and that's it.
I thought there was, but, okay, then that aside, the other problem I have with the way it was stated, in that planning and zoning would give a recommendation to building, the building inspector, right, the building department?
No, not the inspector, it would be the zoning official, or the person who's plan review.
Is that Manny?
That's man. Yes.
Okay. So here's
now.
my problem with Manny for now. Because Manny sits here in the meeting and says, when he doesn't know and can't make a decision, he calls Mark Marsh, who sits on planning and zoning, who wants the architectural review ordinance. I think that's not the way it should be.
I don't know if you believe he calls Mark Marsh directly. He used to,
He sat right here and said he did.
well, that's one of the reasons why we're looking into a full-time building official, and that's actually in the budget.
I mean, I don't want to argue with you, but I was here.
So, it's one of the reasons why we're looking into a couple different things.
Okay, but I just think that circle should be looked at.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on that? Come on, Jerry.
Jerry Garay, 130 Island Drive. I'm the chair of the P&Z, and I will say that yesterday morning we had a very full discussion on the point. And the consensus was, both the public and members of the board, is that we need a step in the process to provide some mandatory minimal oversight to make sure that we don't go off in directions that aren't inconsistent with the quality of life in the town. Now, it's a very subjective thing, but nevertheless, it's a step in the direction of maintaining the quality of life. And it's not mandatory, it's mandatory that they come to us, but we only are going to provide advice or comments. So it's part of, I think, in my opinion, part of good governance for this town. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Terry? No, Terry.
Terry.
Oh, Jerry, Terry.
I guess you had me on the record already, Terry Brown. Appreciate the concept, but if you're not going to make the recommendations mandatory, you're going to slow down the whole process, you're going to make it more expensive, and everybody's going to be pointing their fingers at the manager's office or the building official's office because it's taking so long to get anything done. I just think that if you get to the end and you make a recommendation, or building official, the board, the P&Z makes a recommendation to the building officials or the zoning people, and the contractor and the owner says, kiss off, we're not going to do it that way. I mean, you've done nothing except spend a lot of time and money, their time and money. And of course, you have to have meetings with P&Z every month if you get enough applications in. So I just think that it's slowing the process down with extra regulation. And Donald Trump, our president today, made an announcement that he wants to eliminate excess regulations on infrastructure. He did. He wants to get rid of them.
Thank you, Terry. Any other public comment on that? Sure. Thank you. Brian, is that it?
I think that's it, yes, sir.
All right, so you have the consensus of the commission?
It appears that that is the consensus of the commission, yes.
Okay.
I will move forward in that direction.
Thank you.
All right, Chief.
The monthly report for June is attached to your report. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Last month, you directed me to give you some additional information on the traffic calming and possibility of placing stop signs on Beachway as a traffic calming effort. I've included a small report for you. If you have any questions on that, I'll be more than happy to answer them. If not, I would like to ask everyone to be ever vigilant. Close your garage doors, lock your cars, keep the keys in it. The incident that Dr. Rototo brought forward earlier in comment about a car being stolen in 50 seconds, I'm going to address that because it's very important to understand that was a crime of opportunity. We have tracked down the location of the suspects, recovered the stolen car along with another stolen car that was out of Jupiter. We've recovered a large amount of property that is associated with crimes that start in Martin County and end in Sunrise, Florida. We recovered that car in Lauderhill very shortly after it was stolen, based upon the work of the officers that were on duty and their skills in working with Fort Lauderdale Police Department and Broward Sheriff's Department. I have to give them kudos. They went out of their way to help us. 50 seconds. The woman forgot something in her house, got out of her car, ran in the door, and before she could get back out, somebody driving down the street jumped out of their car, got in hers, and took it. Those types of crimes occur. They're difficult to stop. I need everybody's help. Those are the kind of things we need to deter and make this not a user-friendly neighborhood. I'd just like to remind everybody that because we all get complacent. It is Ocean Ridge, and it was a beautiful sunny day. What's 15 seconds? That's what 15 seconds is.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief?
I do. Chief, can you give me an update on the status of the Naloxone?
Naloxone.
Naloxone, rather,
We've
Naloxone.
had a lot of inquiries regarding naloxone, which is the antidote for an opioid overdose. The police department, in an abundance of caution, purchased some naloxone and did some initial training for the officers because information was that the officers were now encountering fentanyl and becoming affected immediately. As part of that, we've done some research into a full program for the town. We were able to contact Wayne Fire Rescue in order to do a program for public use. We all have to be trained. We have to have proper dosage and things, and it has to be done under the direction of a medical director. We don't have one. The good news is, on August 31st, the police department will be trained by Boynton Fire Rescue SWAT medics under the direction of their medical director to be able to carry that antidote on us for immediate use for any opioid overdose. The only cost to the town will be maintaining the prescription opioid antidote on an annual basis. We have seen an increase in overdose deaths and responses to overdoses in the last 6 months, considerable. Not quite as bad as some of our surrounding areas, but it is time that we did that. Boynton has been very gracious. Our MOU for fire department, they have said that based upon the national epidemic, covers us, and their medical director is of the belief that everyone that is first responder should have access to that. So we're going to move forward that program. The actual cost to the town is probably less than $700 a year.
We've actually had incidents where we needed to use the drug.
We have had incidents where we did not have the antidote, but it was deployed by Boynton Fire Rescue. I can speak to one incident where we probably, and it's the best guess, had we had the antidote, we may have been able to affect a life-saving event. I can't tell you because it depends upon what the person had ingested and what stage of critical care level they were at. So it's the best guess. I think that we're being affected by that epidemic in Ocean Ridge just as well as elsewhere. So we've made an attempt to protect the officers, and in doing so, now been able to affect a program that will protect the residents and the kids and the people who visit, and hopefully we can avoid the tragedies that we see across the bridge.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right. Any other questions for the chief? Hearing none, let's move on to action items. All right, Chief, you're up for the telephone system upgrade.
As briefly as I can be, in this year's budget, we budgeted to replace the current town's telephone system internally. My recommendation is to use the current town vendor based upon the report I provided to you. The cost effectiveness of that system and the ability to, it's service provider agnostic, so we could change from our current vendor to AT&T to Sprint if that needs to be without incurring any additional cost for the internal telephone system. I researched it with other communities locally. Atlantis just did the same thing. They used the same reasoning and used the same vendor, actually. And so I believe that's the best interest of the town. That comes in at $13,388 to do that system upgrade. We budgeted $13,000. That's as close as I could get to that number at this point in time, since it was budgeted 10 months ago.
Is that number in our information, 13,388, an exact number, or?
That is the quote that was given to us. I gave you two quotes. I had difficulty getting independent quotes from people. I got a lot of people who were interested, but nobody would send the proposals. And Vonage and Essential Net Solutions, through a second party, gave us quotes. And if you look at the quotation for Expert Communications, the bottom line is $14,888 with a $1,500 rebate for the equipment that we would be removing, for a total of $13,388.
So if we approve this expenditure of $13,388, that would cover it, or do you think you need anything more for something that may,
My discussion with
like taxes or something?
my discussion with our telephone vendor and the person who did this proposal was exactly your question. Is there any other hidden charges or fees? And his response was no.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone make a motion?
So I make a motion that we authorize the purchase from the recommended vendor in the amount of $13,388 as set forth in action item number 13 in our agenda.
I second the motion.
All right, motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, number 14, security camera upgrade. Hal?
Basically, same information, budgeted item from this year's budget to update the town hall security video system, to remove the DVR and functioning systems from where it is and relocate it to the front office in the computer room. The system is 8 years old. It was put in with this building. The technology is beginning to fail. There are some additional areas that we have identified over the course of the last 8 years that we need to provide camera security, videotaping for the security of the town hall after hours and obviously during meetings and for the public. I attempted to get numerous quotes. The only two that responded in any form or fashion with anything in writing other than we'll get you a quote were Scope Limited and CK Security System, which I've indicated here. CK's quoted only replacement of a DVR, which is not what was asked. Scope provided two separate quotes with different styles of equipment. My recommendation is that we purchase and have installed by Scope at the cost of $23,076, the upgrade of the video system based upon the proposal in your package.
All
Okay.
right.
Same question. You anticipate any other hidden costs, or is that the number?
Once again, I asked the same question and got the same answer.
Okay. I move that we
I
authorize.
got a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, your other estimates had warranties. Do these come with any kind of 1, 2, 3 year?
The telephone came with a warranty.
Yeah.
The Scope Limited comes with a 1-year warranty standard manufacturer on electronics.
So, bumper to bumper, 1 year?
It's the manufacturer's warranty on the equipment,
And labor
And, yeah,
for a year?
it doesn't come with labor that I'm aware of. No one would warranty the wiring and stuff like that I could find, especially because of the environment that we are in. Salt kills everything. That's part of the reason we need to start replacing some things and fixing some things.
All right, anybody make a motion for this?
All right, I move that we authorize the purchase of the town security camera upgrade in the amount of $23,076 as set forth in action item number 14 on tonight's agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, moving on to number 15, town attorney contract by the town attorney, or by the town manager? You gonna tell us about your own? Okay, go ahead.
Basically, this is just, it's an amendment to the agreement, just extending it for a year period. The original agreement has an expiration date of September 30th, 2017. So all this amendment does is extend it for another year till September 30th of 2018, under the same terms and conditions.
Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the extension of the legal services agreement between the town and the law firm of Tershivia, Donlin, Godot, and Ansay, PA, as set forth in action item number 15 in tonight's agenda.
second.
Motion and second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, number 16, town manager contract. Brian?
Okay, basically, at your last meeting, you gave direction to, because you had given notice to the town manager that his current agreement will not be renewed, so it'll terminate September 30th, 2017. And so therefore, but you did give direction to draft another agreement that provided for a 30-day term rather than the annual term, and that's what's before you. It provides for a 30-day term that will automatically renew unless notice is provided by either party of their intention to not renew the agreement. If the town decides to not renew the agreement, then you give the town manager 30 days notice of that intent. Upon the conclusion of the 30 days, the town manager then would be entitled to a 30-day severance package or a 30-day severance pay, provided he executes a general release in favor of the town. Also, the other item that is changed, and I must say all the other terms and conditions of the agreement are the same, except the termination notice that the town manager must give the town. He must give us 60 days notice before he would decide to not renew that agreement.
Okay, questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Or I have a statement, maybe. I wasn't here when this was passed at the last meeting. I don't understand, for the life of me, why his annual contract wouldn't be renewed when there is a clause in there that with or without notice, we can get rid of them. So what's the difference between that and doing the month to month?
Brian?
Well, it's a severance issue, and so under the current agreement, if you would terminate his agreement, and just give him notice after, provided that you have not voted to not renew his contract, but if you would just decide to terminate his agreement, he would be entitled to 90 days severance pay along with the benefits as well. And so that is the main difference. In the new agreement, he is only entitled to 30 days severance with payment for the benefits, but then he must also execute a general release. So that's the change that's made in this proposed agreement.
Well, can't we change that part of the annual contract?
You all can do whatever you want. You can just give me direction, and you can give me
Isn't that effectively
direction.
what you've done, though? This isn't a whole new contract. It's basically, Brian's done exactly what you just asked. To just change that section?
I mean, everything else is the same. It's not an annual contract, though. It's a month-to-month contract is what it is.
Why we would give them a month to month instead of an annual?
But, yeah, you know, that's, I guess I just drafted it based on the direction that I was given,
Yeah,
so.
I understand that. I'm not on your case.
All right, I mean, we'll make a motion. Let's make a motion and we'll go to the discussion period.
I move that we approve the town manager contract as set forth in action item number 16 in tonight's agenda.
Second.
So motion is second. Discussion, public comment.
At this point, it's a done deal, the vote.
Yeah.
But I agree with Commissioner Gale Askoff that it doesn't make sense. I mean, you could just change the benefit severance section of the contract. The thing I'm confused about is that it continues to roll over automatically. Correct me if I'm wrong, it rolls over automatically on a month-to-month basis unless the commission votes to terminate. So he's really getting an annual contract.
Yeah.
Well, I
I
mean,
mean,
it's really, it's unlimited.
I mean, you got to vote 30 days in advance to give him notice, and then he gets the severance. So it just really doesn't make sense. Sounds like you're trying to spook him or something, and you know, it doesn't. That's not the way to deal with people, in my opinion.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other discussion among the commissioners? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against?
Yes.
So, 4-1. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to the first reading of ordinances. Tracy, number 17.
Ordinance number 624, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 66, Environmental Regulations, Article 2, Floodplain Management, Section 66-21, Inspections, Section 66-25, Definitions, Section 66-32, Manufactured Homes, to provide regulations related to manufactured homes, providing for codification, conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
All right, Brian?
This ordinance is before you. If you may remember, just recently, you all had finished adopting the floodplain ordinance that was directed to us by the state floodplain coordinator. However, after we adopted that, in follow-up conversations with the state floodplain coordinator, she was requesting documentation from us that we did not allow manufactured housing in the town of Ocean Ridge, which even though we don't have any, our code does allow for it and our comp plan allows for it. So basically, in order to comply with their standards, we would need to put in the provisions dealing with manufactured housing in the floodplain ordinance, and that was the easiest fix to this. It doesn't really impact our code or the way that we deal with manufactured housing. It just basically provides that since our code allows for it, then we also need to address it in the floodplain management ordinance, and that's what this is before you. So we will need to adopt this because, once again, we will need to adopt this prior to October the 5th, and I also want to let you all know we did receive correspondence from the floodplain coordinator that she said because we were within a 1-month period of the October 5th deadline before we adopt this on second reading, they will make certain notices to certain state agencies that they will have to notify. It's my understanding that it doesn't mean anything, but it is just required under their code that they have to do this, knowing full well that this will be adopted shortly after, at the first meeting in September. But I did want to make you aware of that because we did receive that correspondence from her.
All right, thank you. Motion?
And, I'm sorry, and also this was heard by the P&Z board yesterday, and they recommended approval.
Motion?
I move that we adopt ordinance number 624 as set forth in item number 17 in tonight's agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Public comment? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, Tracy, number 18.
Ordinance number 625, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 67, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 2, Technical Codes and Other Construction Standards by creating Division 3 amendments to the Florida Building Code. It's set forth the local amendments to the Florida Building Code, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Brian?
Okay, this is basically another offshoot of the draft of the floodplain ordinance because when we were looking to adopt the original floodplain ordinance, the state floodplain coordinator commented that the section of our code where we had adopted the countywide amendments to the Florida Building Code would not be allowed, that we would have to remove that because the countywide amendments also contain certain regulations and rules dealing with, or I guess amendments to the building code, but dealing with floodplain issues. So we removed that from the code, and basically what we have done in the meantime is I have looked at several other municipalities out there that have recently adopted amendments to the Florida Building Code. And once again, these amendments that are in front of you now, I know it's about 60-some pages of them, are pretty similar to what the countywide amendments are anyway, except the floodplain issues are different. And they are more, they deal more with localized issues, or they do not contain some of the information that the county, I think, is putting in their floodplain ordinance. So once again, this was heard by the P&Z board yesterday, and their recommendation was for approval as well.
Is there a motion?
I'll move that we adopt ordinance number 625 as set forth in agenda item number 18 in tonight's agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Public comment? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, last one, ordinance number 626. Tracy?
Ordinance number 626, an ordinance of the Town of Ocean Ridge, Florida, amending its Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 34, nuisances, Article 1 in general, Section 34-8, business by contractors and vendors on Sundays and federal holidays, to clarify the hours when construction may be conducted, amending Article 2, noise, Division 3, noise control standards, Section 34-83, construction during certain hours, Sundays and federal holidays, penalties to regulate construction hours on Saturdays, enacting Section 34-97, lawn maintenance equipment noise, to set forth the time periods that lawn maintenance equipment may be operated by contractors and vendors, providing for codification, repeal of conflicting ordinances, severability, and an effective date.
Okay, this ordinance was basically, it was directed to draft this ordinance. I believe it came out of the joint meeting that you had with the Planning and Zoning Commission. And out of that meeting, and also in speaking with the chief, you know, we didn't have anything in here that actually prohibited construction, say after a certain time period. It prohibited the noise, but not the construction part. So that's what I've attempted to do in this ordinance, is to basically provide that, and when I say construction, it's from a commercial enterprise or a vendor. It's not a homeowner doing work on their home. So basically, if you're hiring someone to do something, that can't be done after 6 p.m. or before 8 a.m. 5 days a week. Now on Saturday, also we've put in there, we've limited the time from 8 to 1, and it was already banned on Sundays, and I think there were 5 federal holidays that it was banned on. We have also provided in there that if such as emergencies, and I've tried to clarify that, but if it's like hot water heaters, AC units, electrical issues, that doesn't really fall into the purview of this, that would be allowed. You could do that. The other thing that I've included in here is basically on lawn maintenance equipment noise, that would be prohibited during the same time frame that construction is not allowed, which is the after 6 it's not allowed, before 8 it's not allowed, and on Saturdays before 8 or after 1 it's not allowed. And of course it's not allowed on Sundays or those 5 federal holidays. The other thing that I do want to mention on this, that when there were a couple of questions that came up in the P&Z meeting, and they did I guess with a little bit of reluctance on the time frame for Saturdays, go ahead and recommend approval to you on this. But in looking at the minutes that was provided to me, it seemed like the time frame may have been 2 o'clock on Saturday, not 1. So if you want to make that change, you can. I don't know if I misheard where the direction was, no, let's make it 1 on Saturdays, not 2. But it's up to you. You can let me know how you feel about that. And I can change this if you want to make it 2 rather than 1 and go forward on second reading. The only reason I'm bringing that up is I noticed in the minutes it seemed to be the direction was 2. Had I seen that before I'd drafted this, I probably would have put 2 in here and not 1.
All right, well, let's hear from Jerry. Jerry, you want to come up and tell us your version?
Jerry Garay, 130 Island Drive. As chair of the P&Z board, we had a meeting yesterday morning, and this is another item we considered rather seriously and over an extended period of time, with a lot of public comment and a lot of board discussion. And the main item of debate or consideration was whether on Saturdays the time limit, again, only with respect to third-party contractors, not with respect to homeowners, whether or not that time limit should be 4 o'clock or 1 o'clock. Now, we did not talk about 2 o'clock per se, but anyway, implicit in this was, you know, what's the cutoff time? And we considered, you know, the need to get work done and a lot of different things, but the turning point in the conversation was we were sensitive to our residents wanting some peace and quiet for entertaining and enjoying their Saturdays. And so for that reason, I think the discussion turned on the point of going to the 1 o'clock cutoff point in consideration of, again, resident privacy and ability to enjoy Saturdays. So,
Thank you, Jerry.
thank you.
Any other public comment? While we're doing public comment, Terry, you got anything to say?
I'm going to reinforce what Jerry just said, and I was at the planning and zoning meeting, particularly because of this issue. I actually would like to see Saturday eliminated, but I know that that's not going to happen. I know that there's a lot of business people, vendors, contractors, real estate people that want to get things done. But I think the better time frame is 1 o'clock. I mean, I've been retired 11 years. I have impact windows on my house. And believe me, some of you are not around in the daytime. I mean, they're coming every 30 minutes. You think, whew, I'm getting a break from the blower, and then someone else shows up on the other side of the street. So I think Saturday afternoon, you want to sit around with a glass of wine and have a good time without hearing that buzz, I think 1 o'clock is the way you need to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a question for
Any
you,
other
Brian.
public comment?
Sorry.
That's not too early for wine, right? 1 o'clock is afternoon.
Nancy Hogan, 37 Hibiscus. I was at the meeting also, and I wasn't going to comment on this either, except that I didn't comment the other day. And the only thing is, you know, we are now a 24/7. So not having workers come in on a Saturday is incredibly restrictive. So I wouldn't suggest that. And I don't feel strongly about any of this because, you know, we have the freedom, my husband and I, to have our schedules the way we can. And we're a Billy, but, you know, we're not out there 9 to 5. But secondly, if I had a number, it would be have the work done by 4 o'clock because we are a community, and I hope you're not drinking too early because you ride your bike around town. I almost got you one day, right, Terry? Backed out? Okay. So, but we have a cocktail hour, you know, and people have friends over. The sun is starting to go down the end of the day. So to have quiet and peace after 4 o'clock, and the trucks are out of the way, so your guests can come and park on the street, right, Chief, or the driveways, I think is probably the limits. 1 o'clock, I don't really care, but consider the 4 as an upper limit from my house.
Thank you, Nancy. Any other public comment? All right, so want to make a motion?
I just
Oh,
would
you have
like
a
to
question?
clarify something with Brian. So I just want to make sure that we haven't lost anything here, because we started out with the P&Z and construction, then the commissioners got into the lawn maintenance noise. So now you've merged those two discussion or two different ordinances into this one ordinance that covers everything we discussed.
And all the time frames match, and I think that's what we were trying to
Exactly.
do.
That's what we're
So,
trying to accomplish.
Yes, yes, sir.
Thanks.
And just, I'll make the motion, but just one more point. This is not something that's set in stone. If this causes a lot of issues, you know, 6 months, we can always revisit it and amend it and change the time, so.
Yeah, you can always
Yeah,
repeal
you can
an
always-
ordinance.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's why I don't have a problem with the 1 o'clock cutoff. So with that said, I move that we adopt ordinance number 626 as set forth in agenda item number 19 in tonight's agenda.
I second that
A
motion.
motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, thank you everyone for coming. Meeting adjourned.